Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, which Craig Touch, myself, Roland Fume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry of writing and self-publishing. And today I'm very excited to have a very special guest who I'm delighted to talk to, Emil Rem, who is, well, you describe yourself as an eccentric accountant, but more importantly, a writer of travel journals. And you've had a fascinating life. And you're here to talk to us about the 5 key things about being a successful author. So I am delighted to welcome you to Fully Booked. How are you doing today, Emil?
I'm doing fabulously well, thank you.
And very quickly, in like 30 seconds or less, it's Emil, except it's Emil without the E. And you said you had an interesting story behind that. So very quickly.
I was born in Tanzania, which was German East Africa at that time. A German saved my life, and my Muslim family would have called me Ahmed or Mohammed or something, decided to call me after that person's name, which was Emil. But as soon as they called me that, they forgot the name. They called me Milo, and it should have been Milo because of the baby's face on the milk, powdered milk that they would give me as a baby. So I was always called Miller. And then when I went to England, I was adopted by or fostered by an English family. They asked me, well, how do you pronounce your name? I had no clue. I was always called Miller. They said, oh, well, is Emil okay? I said, sure. And that's how the German name turns into a French pronunciation.
That is fascinating. Well, welcome to Fully Booked. Thank you very much for joining us. And we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
Doing well. Thank you, Roland, and thank you for joining us, Emil. So you're here to talk to us about the things that you need to know to be a successful author. Let's go through the 5 points.
So in my experience, I wasn't an expert. I started with nothing. But if I had 5 points to give to any authors, one would be believe in yourself. When I started writing books, and somebody asked me what I was. I didn't say I was an accountant. I said, hey, I'm a world famous author. I hadn't even sold one book at that stage. But what I said to myself was, sooner or later, they will catch up. So in other words, you've got to have confidence in yourself that you've got something worthwhile to write about and you'll be successful. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. That's one thing. The next thing is tenacity. Choose your tenacity. After I did my 3 or 4 chapters, somebody came to me and said they're good enough to be published. We'll take them to literary magazines. And I must have sent out about 100 of these, never got an answer. Within 3 weeks, I had three answers that were wanting to take my stories that were all over the world. One of them was the Danforth Review, which is quite a stellar literary magazine, and they took me on. So when you think that you're hitting a wall, you may be making that wall so thin that you could virtually break through. If you might probably have hit the wall one more time, you could have got through. You never know how thin that wall is. Do not give up. That was your tenacity. And the other part is listen to everybody, but decide for yourself. So now I'm sending out these short stories to all my guys to look at. I did short stories because I didn't know how far I could write, so I was just doing one story after another. So one of the stories that got the worst review possible was one of the chapters called the Saracen, St. George and the Saracens. I use my video camera effect on my writing, which I don't describe myself, I don't describe my name, I just describe the people along the way. So when I was doing that, the worst story was about a taxi driver in Oman. And they said, oh, you've got too many he's, you've got too many, he's here and he's there. We get totally confused with everything. You should just trash it and throw it away. I didn't trash it and throw it away. I sent it out. That was the first story that was accepted by a literary magazine after all the ones that I'd sent. And that was by the Danforth Review, which is one of the top guys at that time in Canada. And it was accepted. And then you couldn't stop me. I kept on sending these things. Half of my stories have been published as short stories. So you got tenacity. You've got believe in yourself, tenacity, listen to everybody, but decide for yourself. And the other part is you have to express yourself in your own voice, in your own manner. Look, I went into this and everybody, including my cat, meowed and told me that you got less than 0.5% chance of winning any of getting your books published in any form or shape. So I said to myself, look, if I've only got 1% chance of doing it, how would I, having read thousands of stories, how would I, what would I like to see in a book? And I completely changed the way the books are. I went, first of all, we did short stories. By the time we did 12 chapters, everything gelled into a book. I said, we need to get illustrations. I got a friend of mine to do the illustrations, both the cover as well as each page, and do a quote from it, from the book. Then I decided to put an author's notes because I wanted a bridge between myself and the reader. So I put an author's notes on there as to why I wrote that short story in the first place, right? So express yourself. And the fifth thing is take a risk. You know, books were my sanctuary when I was in England in an alien environment. I could escape into those books. I could create my own environment because of those books. Books were really important to me. But one of the things, I got older and older, one of the things that really bothered me was all the self-praise that these people, that you read a book, oh, this is a great book, it's wonderful, it's 5-star, it's this. So I decided to spoof the thing. So I wrote things like on my the last book I had, I put a quote, amazingly amazing. And do you know where that quote comes from? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Mr. Beeblebrox, right? And I didn't put Beeblebrox, I went and put his initials. And then underneath it, I went and put yup as a second quote, and it put Jacques Henri, Henri, Mangy. Now, you look at this stuff and you think, who are they? But the Jacques Henri Mangy was a real person. So once again, if you're going to plunge into writing, plunge it with all your heart. Do the things that you would like to read. Write about the things you want to do. Because if you're a loser and you know 99.9% chance is you'll win a lottery ticket before you get famous or anything, why not take the risk? People are so scared of taking the risk. What they don't understand is, another quote I gave to somebody was, I don't like failing. And the reason why I'm successful in what I do is because I feel that there is always a way, but you have to find the right path. The moment you find that right path, you're on your way. But what people do is they'll put a whole bunch of effort in for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. I've spent 7 years in this, and they've gone the wrong way. But instead of saying to themselves, "Hey, I've gone the wrong way. How do I turn this around and go in the right direction?" They give it up, and they spend the rest of their lives telling everybody that they will not be successful in whatever they do. That's the sad part. Hope.
That's so. I was just going to say, tell us about the process of you actually writing. You said you didn't start writing until you're in your 60s. What made you decide to do, well, how did you start? Did you just have a blank page? Did you have a word processor, anything like that? Where's the beginning?
No, I don't. Oh my God. I got stories. Everything I impart are lessons. They're parables. So I'll tell you what happened. So I go to write, and I have a little notepad and I write away. My writing is absolutely appalling. So I write, and I've only written 6 pages in a little notebook. And I go back to Canada. My family come back, and I have no more time. And then my father dies. So I said, and my kid is asking me what to do. So I said, hey, I've better get on and write do the books. I couldn't do it on my own. I needed somebody there who I could meet physically once a week, and I'd have a day off. I'm lucky that the money I earn is enough for me to be able to take the time off I want to take. So every Thursday I would take the day off, and I would just spend 8 hours, and I would write 3,000 words. I then go and meet the lady on Tuesdays, and we'd sit down, we'd go through it. She'd say, well, this needs to be changed, that needs to be changed, that needs to be done. But the good news was she allowed me to keep my voice, which is, as I said, like a camera viewing all of these other people. And eventually the stories came out of that, but the stories were really mine. The third party that I used instead of personal tense was mine. because I didn't want me to intrude into those stories. I wanted all those minor people that everybody would ignore on their holidays, like the yam seller. I didn't want myself to be intrude in those things, and that's the reason why I took that on. And bit by bit by bit, the lady said to me, "Hey, I think that we can publish this in a literary magazine. Let me try it." And she did, and she was successful. And one went after another went after another one, and they went all over the world, all the way from New Zealand downwards. But you
And
got to keep going at it.
that all goes to point 4 of what you said, which is express your own voice on your own terms. And I guess that's the victory you managed to have. Instead of having your voice diluted by other people's input, you managed to keep that voice.
Right. And at the end, when people were starting to complain about my putting author's notes and all this stuff, they loved the books. And if I didn't do that, they complained to me. Where's the author's notes? And then I went one step further in my third book, and I put illustrator's notes. Because the kid who did the illustrations, I wanted them to do it in their own way. I didn't want to have any, because normally these kids were misfits. They did all of these books and printed them in the basement of their apartments. And when I got them to do this, I walked everywhere in Crocs, golden colored Crocs. So what did they do? One of them decided to take the Croc as the silhouette and put in there all the contributors in the book, and so it was a Croc. Somebody else did a handwritten map, and so they would take an extract of the map, put it at the beginning of the chapter, so that you could see exactly the world where the story was coming from. Somebody else we did a limited edition hardback book. And so what they did was, I used to fly around on Comet 4s. They would have the comets flying up into the air at the beginning, and they have comets flying down on the back pages there. So we did all of that too. But the main essence is keep going. If you love something, you keep going at it. I'm in the middle of the night and I think of an idea. Like, I am totally absorbed in my writing. It isn't just a matter of sitting there, let's do it for 3 weeks and see what happens. It's a full-time commitment to me. And what I'm trying to do is influence people. The same way as I said to you that people subconsciously, like the Muslim stuff, put them to the side and they concentrate on the British Empire and the Arabs are nothing. My stories are comparisons and contrasts. So one of the stories about a taxi driver looks like an Arab, can't speak English. I'm fighting with him to go here, there, and everywhere. We agree with the price for the travel. This is in Oman. We agree for a price of travel. He comes back. He refuses to take my money. I go to the manager, complain, say, why is this guy not taking my money when we agreed on it? I'm not going to pay him anymore. He only took me to half the stuff I wanted to go. The guy was poor. His car was bent. He had mud all over the car. He needed the money. So anyway, the manager goes down to talk to him, and he comes back to me and smiles and says, "Sir, he only wants half your money." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because he only took you to half the place. He's Muslim, and his principles are that he's not there to take advantage of somebody." So my stories change from looking at something through a very prejudiced eyes, a Western eyes, turning it around and seeing that other person on the way.
That's the whole thing about what you're writing. You're having these fascinating stories, and you're a bit able to publish them so people can read them and delve into that. And I was interested.
Yeah, I think, like, to go through those 5 points too, like, when I look at the books and the idea that you're writing these travel books and you're doing illustrations, whereas most travel books, they would have the pictures, right? And you had mentioned how you did all this traveling before you didn't have a camera, so you weren't able to take pictures. But I think that that's really interesting, because that didn't stop you from writing these books. You just went a different way and did these illustrations, which sort of goes to your point of taking risks, trying something new, which we often find and we often tell authors to do, because that is where you find the most success sometimes. And sure, you find failure there too. But that is one of those things where the traditional publishers back in the day wouldn't take risks. They wouldn't allow authors to do something different. And that stifled creativity and made every book sort of like the same and kept the genres very, very static. But you've gone ahead, you've lived through your 0.5 for sure, and taken these risks and written something that's different, which I think is great.
And I guess, oh, I was just going to say, one of the things about reading is you have the vision of the world through your head. So you are the video camera, and it's your words that you use to paint the picture.
Well, here's the way I look at it. People come to me and say, well, if you want to be successful, this is what you have to do, because these guys, you got to emulate these people who are successful. But you will always be a clone of those people. People want you to be genuine in what you do. They want to feel that you care about what you're writing and you're communicating to somebody as a friend, as you would to a closest friend. But if you start diluting your work and going with somebody, and your chances of being successful are as much as if you do it that way or if you do it your way, why wouldn't you just go your own way? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, some people want to just chase the success, right? They're worried that if they go their own way, they might not find the audience. But it depends on why you're writing, and if you want to tell your story your way, like you said, listen to everyone, decide for yourself. You can learn what the best practices are, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide for yourself if that's the route you want to go, or you want to take a different route and tell the story your way.
You have to be true to yourself. You have to listen to the voice within yourself, and each of us have that individual voice. That's what you got to listen to, not be influenced by what some expert says. I mean, you came to me and says, as an expert, we'd like you to give your advice. I couldn't believe I was an expert. Everything I did was wrong. Everything I do is wrong. And you know what? One day I sat down at Christmas time during the COVID. We couldn't go anywhere. I said, what was your purpose in life, Emil? I've been a bloody nuisance everywhere I've gone because I don't think like everybody else. And you know what? And in the end, I said to myself, you know what your purpose was, Emil? Whether it's in accounting to try and prove to someone that they should do their tax structure in a totally different way, whether it's wearing shorts and T-shirts somewhere where you should have been dressed up, wherever it is, you have been really throwing down the gauntlet at people, saying, think in a different way, because there's happiness at the end of the way. I've seen accountants that I came to Calgary with 40 years ago are absolutely miserable. They spent all their lives in accounting. They haven't gone anywhere. They've saved all their money up without going anywhere on holiday or taking their kids anywhere. Because, what happens? We need enough money to be able to live on. Well, one guy came to us and wanted to go on our website. He said, we always wanted to go to Spain. My wife died. I've got arthritis in my knees. I can hardly walk anywhere. I wish we had gone somewhere. I have no regrets. Whether things went well or didn't go well, I have no regrets in what I'm doing, and I'm pursuing everything that I want to do in life. And that's what your author should do too.
It's
Absolutely.
Funny. I was going to say, it's funny. We were talking about one of the questions is, how do you define a successful author? And it seems to me that you just, what you're doing, it's almost regardless of how the impact is out there. The fact that you're doing it and creating this thing that your children will read and their grandchildren will read. I imagine your great grandchildren will read these stories and experience something of you. It's almost like your chance at immortality when you actually write something like that.
I am so grateful for everything that I've had with what I started, the disasters. If you read my books, you'll see the disasters that were in there. And I've been able to survive, and I've been able to find that balance that I'm happy with everything I've got. I'm so grateful for it. I don't ever look at somebody and say, oh my God, he's got a fancy car. I wish I had that. There's never one thing in my life that I've said, oh, I wish I had that, or I wish I had that. I'm happy with what I am. And if I succeed, great. If I don't, but you know what? The success I already feel I have, because more and more people are interested in what I'm doing. I love what I do. I see the workmanship has improved every time I do something, and I've got boundless ideas. I've got enough ideas now for the next 7 books.
And are you writing more books?
No, I am, and I'm not. My new book is going to be called Journey Cake, and it's about Bahamas. Journey Cake came because every time we go to the Bahamas, I would on my first night we'd go to a local place and I'd end up with a Cuban bean soup. With that, they came up with something called Johnny Cake, which is a thick, spongy bread you dip in the soup. Nobody knew where that name came from. I did some research on it, and it came from Journey Cake. There are 700 islands in the Bahamas. When somebody went from one island to another, they would take this cake because it would last them for a couple of weeks, and therefore, if they couldn't find food, they sustained themselves. And I'm the kind of guy that I like a title before I write a story rather than the other way around. I never wanted to write about the Bahamas because we lived in a place at Christmas time which is like bloody Disneyland. Who needs that? But that's what we did. It was the Paradise Island there. So now I get the title. I said, this is great. So what am I going to write about? Journey cake. I said, I'm going to write about people in the Bahamas that I met along the way. That's great. But now I'm going to write the story of how I started in writing and where I've ended up in writing and meet all the eccentrics that were in both places and compare the two. So from that title, I got that. And that's what the book is going to be. But then we had a slight U-turn because I do listen to people sometimes. So now we had a U-turn. So I had a marketeering guys that were costing me a fortune from the States. They said, oh, you got to write something every 2 weeks at least, a blog or something that we can circulate. Well, I started writing these blogs and I said, how the hell am I going to write a blog every 2 weeks? I've got to really be passionate about what I'm doing. You know, I started writing these things. I write one every week and I'm so excited about writing these, and they're analects on my website. It's called a section of analects. I didn't call it blogs. I'm so excited. I'm now a month ahead of myself in what I'm writing and what I'm not writing. So then I thought, this is great. Why don't we write a book of analects? These guys in the States had said to me, not the ones I've got now, but the previous guys said to me, you know what, do something that's self-help books. That will sell much better than your books. Idiot that I am, I said, okay, well, I'll try that. But none of my stuff was self-help. They're all things that I'm telling you now that went into my analects. They're just shorter. So now we get these analytics. I must have written about 50 or 60 of these. Once I get to 100, I'm going to turn it into a book, and I'm going to have it illustrated, not just pictures photos I've shown on there. But I said, this is great. This is what I love doing. It is a kind of self-help. So now I'm going to get to 100 by the end of the year, perhaps. And I'm going to turn it into a book with illustrations on it too. Yesterday, I did one. Well, that's coming out on August the 1st now. And I went crazy. You know, like I always like to do things my way, right? Like Frankie. So what I did was, I took this gorgeous, gorgeous picture of a beach that we were in a place called Harbor Island in the Bahamas, where they have pink sands and it. And I wrote, and this is the most beautiful 2 deck chairs looking out at sea with trees over them, the palm trees over them, and you have the most beautiful view in the world. So what did I do? I said, enjoy the view, dream a little. That was my analect. That was it. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Someone look at it. What are you wasting our time for? And then I said, this is going to be the title of the analects. You're going to have a yellow book. You're going to have white writing on it, the same way as Vanishing Gardens. At the bottom of it, you're going to have this gorgeous picture. And the title of the book is going to be Enjoy the View, Dream a Little. And that is going to be the title of my first book of analects. I'm going to send them out every year, as we used to do when we used to get the comic annuals in England. So that's what I'm going to do. As soon as that's finished, then I'm going to go back to my journey cake and get that done. I've got another one on Hawaii. I've got another one on going through northern Italy and ending up in Venice. I've got a bunch of and then I've got one about Hong Kong. It's called Stinking Harbor.
And so how much
people won't like?
And how much have you learned in the books that you've already written that you're now applying to the books that you're writing right now? I mean, do you see like your whole process has changed as a result of what you've learned?
I used to, in Chasing Aphrodite, my sentences were very long and they were clunky. Yet they had the power of emotion that the first book will always be my favorite. But as I have progressed, I've written shorter sentences. I've written a lot more when the transition areas from going from one thing to another, because each story goes from one kind of story in the present to a story in the past. I'm finding that my transitions are much smoother. All the techniques of writing I've improved, and I'm so lucky or pray or blessed that the quality, the emotional quality of what I'm writing is still there. It hasn't been lost in this, the technique. So I am extremely happy with what I am.
I guess that goes back to your point that you made about listen to everyone but decide for yourself. You had all of this different feedback, and there were some elements you accepted and adopted for yourself, but there were some elements you rejected and went your own way, and that seems to have worked out.
It always works out because success is perception. You're as successful as you think you are. That's what people don't understand.
Right.
They don't get it. If you're happy with yourself, you're doing the things that you're doing, you're making the choices. I would love to die. If someone says, when would you like to die or something, I said, I'd love to die tomorrow, because I've done everything I've wanted to. Whether they've turned into a failure or success, I really don't care. I've done everything I've wanted to. I'm constantly looking forward to waking up in the morning. I've got projects galore. I've pick and choose my own clients that I've had for 30 years or more. They become my friends. I don't need to pick anybody I don't want. I'm not doing my accounting work for anything. And every day I go out and I try and convert people to a different way of thinking, which is what my writing does.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest things that authors, and actually not just authors, regular people that don't write in their regular life, the issue they have is judging their success by others, right?
Yeah.
Having to compare themselves to others to determine their level of success, which isn't what you need to do. You need to decide what is successful for you. Otherwise, you're in danger of turning success into failure by, taking something that would have felt successful to you, but then when you compared it to your neighbor and said, "Oh, it's not as successful as him," but you don't care. You're not looking for that, right?
Exactly.
And we often say that to authors is like, when you if they say, "Oh, I'm not successful," it's like, but what does that mean to you? Like, it is success to you just publishing a book, then you are successful. If it was that your goal to begin with, then you are successful, right? If you've done that, was your goal to make $1 million, and that's how you decided you want success to be, and you haven't reached that, sure, okay, then from that perspective, you're not. But that doesn't need to be everyone's goal, and it isn't, right? So I think you have the right way of looking at it from that perspective.
I would like to give you a quote. I wrote this quote and I was so happy with it a while back. And the quote was, "Life is a prison. You have to learn to shift it to reflect the colors you want."
I guess so. It is success is perception. I like that. That's kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that even fits in with quantum physics, where they say, nothing is real until you observe it.
Do you know what the moral, the parable is of chasing Aphrodite? You go all over the world looking for something, and it's in your backyard, right? And if that's how I met my wife from the Philippines, I met her at work. I didn't meet her abroad. And chasing Aphrodite was me looking for Greek delights and Turkish delights, having to go to another town to look for it, couldn't find them. I had a whole long, hot, miserable day because it's 41 degrees. I come home and suddenly they're all there in 100 different flavors. And that was the story about chasing Aphrodite. You're looking for love. You're looking for an answer to your life. That's what that title was about. If you only read Chasing Aphrodite and Aphrodite Revisited or whatever it was, there was 2 chapters. It should be 1. That gives you the essence of the book there and then.
Oh, well. Now we are approaching the top of the hour, the psychiatrist hour. Do you have some final advice? There are people out there who are aspiring writers, or they're writing, or they want to write, or something like that. What is your concise final piece of advice that you can give them right now that hopefully they will take action on?
You're asking me for concise. You know what I've been talking about for hours on end and getting you nowhere. Just stick to a routine. Get yourself into a routine. Get yourself a mentor that you have to present something to. I don't care if the mentor is your cat, but you do that and you make yourself, you're going to write 3,000 words. It doesn't matter what it is. Once you've got that, then you can go into the next time you write and correct it and do what you have to do and move it. And don't throw anything away because somebody tells you.
I like that. That's so interesting. I was thinking of stories like Stephen King. He threw out the first draft of Carrie, and then his wife pulled it out from the garbage can, and that was his breakout book. So don't throw anything away.
But that's the same with me on the first story that was published.
Which set off the whole path that followed. It wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah, I loved you so much, both of you. You know, it's like you guys can be there and share a beer with in a pub or somewhere. Are you in England? Are you in Canada? Where are you?
I'm in New York, actually.
Oh my God.
I'm in Canada, actually, but I'm closer to Toronto. So
now tell everyone who's listening right now, where can they find out more about you and where can they find out your books? Do you have a website?
It's Emil Rem, R-E-M, and Emil is lime backwards, E-M-I-L, R-E-M for rapid eye movement .ca. Please go and visit my analects, which is a section there, and they can whiz through that. They're only a few hundred words each, but they'll everything that's in the book is reflected in there. And also, if you can, there's a pop-up, press it because you get a free chapter without spending any money. And we do not go out and market you guys or do anything of the kind and do that. But if you can do those things, that would be great.
So what we'll do is we'll pop a link directly there in the description of this video. So all of you listening or watching, scroll down right now and make sure you click on that link. But you'll notice as you scroll down, you'll pass that big empty comment section. So why don't you drop Emil a comment and let him know how much you appreciated everything he shared with us today?
Yeah, but no bad stuff, right? If you don't like the book, please go and talk to your wife about it. But please don't do that. Just give me all the good stuff that I can quote and make my book like everyone else saying, oh, it's a fantastic book. It's so interesting.
And also, while you're down there, there's that subscribe button. If you haven't clicked that already, make sure you give that a double tap. There's the like button. We always appreciate having a like. And finally, there's a little bell icon. If you click on that, you will hear back from us every time we have a new episode of Fully Booked, which we will do next week.
Isn't that lovely? Appreciate
Thank you so much for joining us, Emil.
It's a pleasure meeting you both. Thank you.
Thank you.